You know how some decisions are really life altering, but you kind of don't realize in the moment, and so you don't pay it the mind and attention that you really should? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. I made the mistake of buying property in 2024, and it was awful. And here's my story. It is a heck of a story. So get your popcorn, your snacks, your favorite drink, and we are going to get right into it. First off, again, I don't mean this to come from a place of bad intention or hopelessness, but, really, guys, let's be honest. The Gen Z generation, if you are under 30 right now, and even over, really, I think it's kind of going up to like 35-ish now at this point. But if you are part of the generation that's just kind of losing hope for America and any hope of owning anything, then I think this story will really strongly relate to you. So I thought I actually had a chance at owning property, and if you listen to my last video, I talked about this a little bit, but am I the only one who gets the sense that, like, you really can't own anything in 2026? Like, you can get a subscription plan, you can, like, I don't know. Yeah, get a subscription plan, but it's like everything is on borrowed time, borrowed money, borrowed finances, getting debt, loans, etc. Well, here is the horrible story of me buying property in 2024. So, my wife and I were renting and decided, hey, if we're going to spend all this money on rent, why don't we put it toward a property that would actually build us equity, right? Something that made sense 45 years ago. So we set out, we got a realtor, we found a property that we liked, and the price it was on the higher end for us, but you know what? Hey, we get a first-time homebuyers grant and stuff, so I figured why not give it a shot? So, we purchase the property, and, seems like a decent place at first, but there's a couple things that we noticed that are really, really off. Big red flags, and I'm thinking, man, did I make a big mistake? Did I get myself into something really bad here? And the first thing that I noticed that was really off is the keys. So the previous owners gave us like this bag of keys, right? And it had a lot. They were all unlabeled, so it's sort of hard to tell what did what. But we found the one for the front door, the deadbolt, and the hand lock, and that worked fine. But we couldn't find keys, even though there was a lot of them for like the mailbox in the community, because you didn't have like a mailbox. This was a condo, right? In one of those complexes where every single unit looks exactly the same, right? That's the kind of situation. So I couldn't find the key for the mailbox. I couldn't even find the mailbox. It's like, where is it? And so I reached out to my realtor, and I was like, hey, any insights on this? And she said, hey, why don't you reach out to the HOA? And I'm like, okay, cool. So then I reach out to the HOA. Yeah, it turns out there wasn't one HOA. There were 3 HOAs. Each one did something different, and I'm really not sure what each of them did, even to this day. Like, my agent wasn't able to tell, and so I kind of had to like reach out to all of them and just say, hey, this thing is going on, at which point they would, the 2 would reply, oh, that's not our problem, it's this person's problem. And that's just kind of how I figured out which one did what. Now, I didn't know this, obviously, when I was purchasing the property. Otherwise, I honestly probably wouldn't have done it. And I didn't know the fees were as high as they were going to be. And that's the thing. It's like I kind of felt like, man, I should have a legal case on my side against, like, I wasn't told all this stuff, and now it's causing problems. And on top of that, because I didn't have a mailbox, when I finally found it, I had a bunch of late notices. It was like, 2 months, maybe almost 3 months later, after moving in, that I found my mailbox, and I had a bunch of late notices because I didn't know where my mailbox was. I didn't know where my mail was going, and none of the HOAs were answering me. And so somehow I got a hold of a maintenance guy, and he actually was like, I kept hounding him, and I'm like, dude, I really hate to be this guy, but I have no clue what's going on with my mail, and this is like super important. Like, I'm not getting packages or anything. And if there's like bills and stuff, like, I need to make sure I'm getting those. And he was cool about it. He sent me like a pin in like Google Maps, and like even drove there and took a picture. It's like, hey, here's where your mailbox is. So I was super grateful for that. But the whole situation was completely ridiculous. It's like they didn't want to give out any kind of helpful information, yet I was paying over $400 just for HOAs every month. Not to mention, all the utility bills and all the extra things that they tack on. Like, the HOA was supposed to cover like snow removal, which they did an awful, terrible job at. Awful job. We were snowed in for like days. Like, you couldn't even hardly leave the community because we have to get to the main roads first and this, that, and we were just zero priority. And they also did lawn care and they did trash, but like occasionally I would still get like extra bills for trash. It's like, what am I paying for? Truly. The gym wasn't really upkept very well. The water machine, the filter didn't work. You just had to press the bottom part. But the part where you actually dispense water for your water bottle on top wasn't working. Like, the sensor was broken or something, and the filter was always red. Like, you wonder what you're paying these people to do. And they have so much control over you in the community and what you're doing. Which leads me to my next point. I had awful neighbors, and they would leverage the awful HOA, right? They would report me to the HOA for things. Like, we had a dog, and sometimes what we do is we trained him that he would do his business on his own and then come back inside, and we would go back out and pick up his droppings, right? And the reason we did that is like sometimes it would be raining or something. It's like, I don't want to stand out there while he frolics about and then does his business and then comes back. I don't want to get soaking wet. So I'll let him do his business, and then I'll go pick it up as soon as the rain clears. Well, again, awful neighbors, awful community, awful HOAs, just kind of all goes hand in hand here. So the neighbors started taking pictures of my dog, and they were knocking on my door and stuff. And what happened was I got a letter from the HOA, and they're like, hey, one of your neighbors said that you aren't picking up your dog's stuff, and you're letting him out without a leash, and you're doing they were trying to tack on every violation that they could, and there was pictures there, and you could tell from where, based off the angle of the photo, where it was taken. And I knew what neighbors were doing it, and it was creepy. And it made me think, like, if you're taking pictures of my dog, are you taking pictures of my property? Like, now do I always have to keep my curtains and stuff closed? It was awful. And to be so pedantic about something like that, it just shows the character of the people that were in the community. It was just awful. So I had 3 HOAs, awful neighbors. And then, are you guys familiar with flock cameras? Well, I wasn't until I lived there. And if you've been paying any attention to the news lately, flock cameras are everywhere, and people hate them, right? Because they are used by large data collection agencies, and I believe they're connected to more than that, right? I think some parts of the government are likely connected to them as well, very likely, and can use that and leverage it whenever they want. They're basically cameras that have solar panels, and they're everywhere. Like, in the state that I'm in, they are everywhere. Every community, every stoplight, just constantly taking pictures of your car, your license plate. And I've seen news reports, right, of people who have got pulled over, and handcuffed or detained by police officers because the AI, but they're the wrong person, right? But the AI that's like analyzing all this data misread one of the characters of the license plate. And so now you're causing major privacy, I would say privacy infiltrations to people who don't want anything to do with it. And you're causing them major inconvenience by pulling them over when they haven't done anything because it's the wrong person. And so people hate them, and I hate them too. And they were just everywhere in the community. So I had the awful HOAs, I had the flock cameras, I had the awful neighbors. This was like a condo purchase from hell. Not to mention the monthly payments were so crushing. I was always like at zero and always going into debt just to pay my bills. And both my wife and I worked. I just don't get it. Is anyone else in this situation where you're having to pull out, like, I'm not going to say loans, but putting things on credit just to afford to pay it? So that now it's not some collections agency or they're not taking your car or whatever. Anyway, and I think the cherry on top of this entire situation, there are multiple cherries, but here's the first one. So after about a year of living there, we're like, man, this is horrible. We need to get out. Even before that, right? But it wasn't until then that we really had the time to sit down and be like, hey, this is awful. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yes, I'm seeing what you're seeing. All right, let's get out of here. Let's make an exit plan. So we sit down and we talk about it, and we're like, all right, the only real way to get out of this is to sell the property. So we speak to our realtor and we say, hey, realtor, I want to sell this property. And she dead looks at us in the face and she's like, oh, you do? Well, what did you buy it for? And I said, oh, we bought it for this. And she's like, oh, I am so sorry. I'm like, what do you mean you're sorry? And she's like, well, the price that you bought at, no, you're not even going to get that for it. So what you could do is rent. And I'm like, are you kidding? So not only are you telling me there's no way that this is going to sell, but the bigger problem I have is you sold it to us knowing it was a bad deal. Why? Like, are you serious? And I kind of realized, like, wow, you really have to look out for yourself because nobody else will. You have to have your own best interest for your family, your finances, your everything. And that should be obvious. That should go without saying, but these are professionals that are held to high standards. You would think they would have some sense of morality, some sense of conviction, some sense of decency. Well, wrong I was about the whole process. And it cost me everything, literally. Because that's cherry number one. Cherry number two was, all right, we're firing you, realtor, because you're not going to help us, and this situation is literally unlivable. So we find another realtor who's willing to help us. He looks at the property and thinks there's a possibility. So we go ahead with the agreements. We sign the papers to get things on the market. Well, it's 2026 now, and now I'm in contract, right, for the property, but it was on the market since the end of, let's see here, I guess it would have been October of 2025, and it is now July when I'm recording this. So do the math. What is that, like 8 months or something? 9? I don't know. The point is, it was on the market forever. And we had so many showings. Like, it's hard to explain this, right, to somebody who's never had a property, but basically imagine this. You live in your house still, but strangers will come in, right, and do like walkthroughs and showings to see the property, to see if they're interested. And the problem is it would happen at the most inconvenient times, right? We'd be working all week and just be dead exhausted. And then it's the weekend and it's like, we can finally relax. No. We would get a showing request and it would be like, literally like, I'd wake up at Saturday in the morning and then like in an hour or two, it's like, oh my gosh, like 9, 10, 11 a.m., like somebody wants to come over. And like, what are you going to do? Are you just going to say no to all of them and never sell the property? Or are you going to get your dog, your wife, yourself, pack up and leave and clean and constantly? Like, we're talking like 5 times a week. It was just getting in the way of life. I couldn't do hardly anything. It felt like I'd be in the middle of cooking and someone would want to come over, or I would make plans, or I'd even have friends over and then there'd be showings, and it's like, at what point do you just cut this off? So it wasn't selling, and we took it off the market briefly, kind of reassess things, and we had to lower the price. And anyway, we had to go way below market value to get any like legitimate like nibbles or offers. And so we did finally, and all of them were pretty lowball. In our price was already super lowballed. So here's what happened. We reached an agreement, and the title agency wasn't telling me what it would cost to close, but they're like, oh, the deal expires in like an hour, like yes or no. Again, it's just a classic situation of like, you're demanding and asking for the information, but you're getting radio silence. And finally, we reached an agreement, and to close, it was going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars. I'm saying to sell the property, because there were so many closing costs. There was all of this, HOA stuff, like, reassignment fee, new registration fee, like all this really stupid stuff. There was all these taxes, all these title agency things, all these county fees and filing and clerks and, data entry, this, that, and the third, and realtors fees. And you can't keep up with it. And then by the end of it, I'm having to pay tens of thousands to sell my property. I'm having to pull out a loan to sell my property. Think about that. To sell. And I'm probably going to be paying that for years. And you see, my friends, that is kind of the expense, the cost of owning real estate. And I'm not saying every deal is like this, right? This was a nightmarish situation. But what I'm saying is that it can happen if you're not careful. Now, here's the other crappy part. The third, I don't even know how many cherries are on top of this. It might just be all cherries. There were, to close, like the title agency like needed all this like kind of like esoteric information. Like I would have no clue, like all these like minutes and notes and stuff about HOAs and like account numbers and like things that I didn't have. And for the HOA to provide it, they would charge me. It's like, oh, you have to pay for a report of your own property. Go to this website. Pay them I think it was like $250 or $300. They'll send that to the title agency. But it's like, wow, I'm having to pay for information for my own condo that I'm selling. The whole process just infuriates me. It makes you question the system, the infrastructure. But it's making me think like, man, I'm never buying a property again unless I know that this is the one, that I'm doing way better off financially. And now I can kind of assume for the worst. And unfortunately, you should. That's kind of like the lesson I took from this. Assume that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So that's my story, y'all. And, I'll post any updates on it, but man, I just got to tell you, if you are going to buy property, please be careful. Please exercise caution. And please know that, again, it's kind of on you to have your best interest. Like, you might be told one thing and get told another. And you know what? Sorry, I didn't finish up one thing. the HOAs, I thought about like, doing a small court claims kind of lawsuit about like, hey, you never told us there were 3 of these, and now it's costing us all this money. But like, I did speak to someone about it, and they're like, I mean, you could, but it's a wash because the amount of money we feel that you would get out of it is not really worth the legal fees. So now I'm just SOL. So anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that you guys are doing great, and I hope that, again, when it's time for you to get some property, it goes great. Or if you decide to rent, there's really no shame in that. That's another takeaway that I have. There is no shame in just renting, because that's kind of where we're at. But hey, till things get better, I'll be here and love to hear your thoughts on it.